What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 54. Shout out to Cousin Kirk, the Brian Urlacher episode of the Two Bucks Sports Podcast. I am your co-host, Rusty Buckets, coming to you on a much-needed Wednesday night, man. I've been looking forward to this all week. Drew, welcome in, my co-host, Uncle Buck. Drew Gann, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Hey, Rusty, how's it going?
It's good, man. Life here on the coast is never all that bad.
Yeah, I like to, I like to think, me and you have got some, we've got a lot of good things about us. We have a lot of good qualities. One of the qualities that I hope we get as we age, closer to retirement, is the quality that Brian Urlacher has. And that is, upon retirement, being able to miraculously grow hair. And so maybe by the time that we retire, we've got enough money to somehow figure out how to grow hair instead of lose hair. So
yeah, because both of our hairlines are running away from our face as fast as they possibly can.
I told my wife the other day, I was looking in the mirror, which is never advisable. But I got to looking in the mirror, and I said, "Honey, come here." And I guess the added responsibilities of work and whatever have gotten to me, because on the side of my head are just gray hairs, just above the ears. I got to go get a haircut. I can't be having this. So
I feel
if it would just turn gray and stay, I'd be happy with it. But it's the turning gray and running away scared that's the problem.
I'm getting more and more white in my beard. Like every day I look at it, there's more like white hairs coming out, and like I'm fine with a salt and pepper beard, but
yeah,
you're right. I've got one really, really silver one right here up front, but it's getting.
Well, don't worry, that one will be gone before too long.
That's it. It's going. I'm still getting my hair cut and wearing it kind of styled, but I used to shave my head all the time, and I'm getting back to it's almost that time again.
Yeah, it's. I've always told everybody, it's like, one day I'm just going to see a picture of myself and I'm going to be like, you know what, enough's enough. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say anything to anybody. It's just going to be bald. And I'm not going to, shave it to a 1 and, show everybody my patches. It's just going to be straight razor shaved. And I'll just make sure my beard stays nice and thick instead of ever trimming it or anything. It's just going to stay bushy, and I'll just have a bald head and be a big cue ball, big bearded cue ball,
with a great sweet beard, man. And listen, your beard game is better than your hair game. Everybody knows that. Like, you got to have a good beard game these days, because we can wear hats to cover it up and all that, but you need a sweet beard, which we both have been blessed with for sure.
Black people can go bald and they never age. I mean, it's just a seamless. Bald people look good. I mean, black people look good bald. I mean, it's just no question about it. If you're white and want to be bald, you've got to be tall. You got to be like Scott Van Pelt, or it helps if you're tall and bald. If you're short and bald, you better be funny. Because it's just not a good look for you. Cue ball jokes write themselves.
Yeah, that's it. And especially because when you and I first reconnected, when I moved back to Mississippi in 2015. You had that long flow, you just had those luscious locks that, I compared you to Meatloaf at times. R.I.P. With that long flowing hair. And so we're both hanging on to it as long as we possibly can, but we both see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I grew up and cut my hair, and now I'm growing old and losing it. And so maybe the moral of the story is, if you never cut it, you don't lose it. But
I regret, the one regret in life I have is now that I'm losing my hair, that I didn't wear it longer when I was younger. Guys used to just buzz it all the time, didn't care. It was easier to maintain. I've got a decent bald head.
I never had a say when I was younger, and I'm sure you didn't either. Rocky wasn't going to have a long, scraggly-haired boy running around the house.
Especially not my granddaddy, R.I.P. His daddy would flip. He used to accuse, because Jim, my cousin, he has got the curliest hair. And for years, Granddaddy would say all the time, "Why you go get them perms? Why you go get them perms?" And I'm like, Granddaddy, he don't. He's just got curly hair.
Yeah. I always said, if I had curly hair like Jim's, your cousin, or friend of the podcast, Zach, man, it'd be down my back. Like, I'd pay for a scalp like that. And I don't have it.
straight up Macho Man Randy Savage with like shoulder length mullet. Just, oh yeah, brother.
Yeah. So, this is the Two Buck Sports Podcast. We are a podcast and not a television show because of our inefficiencies when it comes to looks. And so, you get what you pay for. If you want to listen to a podcast, you're doing it for the voices. I'm not saying our voices are great either,
right?
But they're better than our looks.
100%. Drew, I've always said that I have a face made for radio, and podcasting is a part of that, man.
Welcome to 2023. This is the radio.
That's it. 100%. And so those of you who choose to listen and watch us on YouTube, like, shout out. That's got to be some cruel and unusual punishment. Appreciate y'all being here, but why?
Right. Yeah. Kirk has told me recently that he prefers the YouTube stream.
Oh yeah.
And it's just because of the looks we give each other when we're talking about our respective teams.
So. That's fair. Me and my rubbing of my eyes and rolling my eyes at you and vice versa. So, all right, man, tell me what's your best of the week? One of our segments brought to you by a future sponsor of this podcast. We always talk about our best and our beef of the week. So what's your best of the week?
Yeah. So this is sponsored by Serta and by Farrell's Home and Outdoor. It's our second ever segment sponsored by Farrell's Home and Outdoor.
They just don't know it yet.
listen to me. I've always thought, I live a good life. I've got a happy life. I got a happy family. But this week we started living like a king. And that all started by my wife looking on Facebook and seeing that Andrew Farrell's wife posted a like new king size mattress free. Just come pick it up. And so I called my dad. I was like, I'm stuck at work. My dad lives, 10 minutes from Andrew, and I live about 40 minutes from Andrew. I said, I'm stuck at work. You got to go get this mattress. And so my dad went and got the mattress, and I called Haley, and I was like, we got it. All right. So at that point, we're like, now what do we do with it? And I'm like, I don't know. We just leave it in the garage. And so we went to like the secondhand store that they do like a bunch of refinishing furniture and stuff, and went out the door with a box spring and a frame, and with the free mattress, $125. And let me tell you what, every night I get in the bed and I look at my wife and I just say, we're living like kings, baby. Like, how do we ever just sleep on a poor folks queen size mattress? I'll never understand. No going back now. That's for sure. Yeah.
I am the size of a queen size mattress. So welcome to the club, man. There's nothing like a good, comfortable king size mattress where you can spread out, man. Whew,
and I'm telling you, Andrew. I grew up with Andrew. He's probably my longest tenured friend. That's not family. He sells mattresses, and they don't sell the cheap ones. And he's a guy who likes luxury. And so I'm telling you, and that's what I told my wife. I was like, if they're giving away a mattress, I can promise you, secondhand. If they were to sell it for what it's worth secondhand, we couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
But they're putting it on the front porch like we're on our way.
We are the handout people. We're taking handouts.
By all means, I am not too proud to beg. And I text Andrew and Devin, his wife, who I also grew up with, and I said, "Listen, is this first come first serve?" She said, "Yeah, it's already spoken for." And in the post it said first come first serve. Just come get it. And I said, "All right, I understand it's spoken for. But is this a race? Because I can probably get there quicker. I'll make sure of it." And she just responded. She just said, "Come get it. It's yours." I was like, yes. On our way. Dad, go get it. So, yeah, that's my best of the week. And I'm telling you, it may be the best of the year for me. It's that king-size mattress.
Man, you're not wrong. Not wrong. My best of the week is just good friendship, man. Again, I've used that one before, but our good buddy, friend of the podcast, Lauren Massey, was in town this weekend, and we had some really good times. Dinner Friday night, played golf on Sunday, where we sent Drew our annual selfie that we always, well, more than annual, but our traditional, that's the word I'm looking for, traditional selfie that we always take, and then sent another one last night, and we were together at dinner again. Just appreciate Lauren, and when good friends come to town, it's nice just to break out of the monotony of the everyday and rehash old memories, like meeting them on the beach because of that Colton Wong jersey.
Colton Wong.
And then going to dinner that night and the fireworks, dodging the fireworks as they're coming down. And then the St. Patty's Day parade and
Yep.
Ben McCool's and Bimini's, and we talked about one of my favorite parts of that night was you taking the picture in the bathroom because the mirror is so tall that it's only showing like your forehead.
Yeah.
Like, Lauren and I were like, we never noticed.
Yeah, I went to go wash my hands in this bathroom, and I just kind of looked up to check myself, make sure I didn't have anything in my teeth, and the mirror was hung so high on the wall that all it caught was my forehead, and I was like, this is insulting. I've never in my life been more insulted than I was by this mirror. And so while in the bathroom, I just took a selfie of myself as I was seeing myself in that mirror and sent it to everybody. And by the time I walked out of the bathroom and sat down, everybody was just still doubled over laughing at this ridiculous picture that only I could take because I'm the only one out of any of my friends that are vertically challenged at all. It seems like all my friends are 6'3" or taller.
Yeah.
And so my wedding party was just like embarrassing, you know, because Chris was standing right beside me and he's like 6'3" and you're 6'5" and Lauren's bigger than you are.
Yep.
And so, I mean, it's just like standing between two skyscrapers. Anytime I go, it's like, oh, who's the two guys and, you know, their manager, you know.
Yeah, but it was just a good weekend to rehash some stuff and just connected, man. It was a lot of fun. Played a great golf course. The golf course was great. The friendship was better. We won't talk about the actual golf game, but had a good time. So shout out Lauren and good friendship like that, man, for sure.
Yeah. Well, my beef is a fantasy football beef because it's something that I was dealing with yesterday, actually. Everybody plays fantasy football knows that Tuesday is waiver day. Well, Sunday, the guy that I took number 1 overall in our League of Avengers, Justin Jefferson, goes out with a thigh injury or hamstring injury. And it comes out, they say that they're going to put him on injured reserve. But until you put him on injured reserve, I can't move him into the IR spot on my bench. And so all day yesterday, I'm like, all right, I need to make him IR eligible so I can put him on my bench. And so I have a free roster spot. And I'll be danged if they didn't do it at like 8 o'clock this morning after waivers had just processed. And I've just made me angry. So I had to go drop somebody and then to make a waiver move. And then I had to open up another spot once Justin Jefferson got IR eligible. But all that to say, that wasn't even as frustrating as Justin Jefferson getting injured and being on the IR. I saw a stat today. It was like the last 4 consensus number 1 fantasy draft picks was Justin Jefferson, who's just going on IR, missing a minimum of 4 games. Last year was Jonathan Taylor, who played 11 games. The year before that, it was maybe Christian McCaffrey, who played like 3 games. And then Christian McCaffrey again that played like 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so the curse of the number 1 pick is real. It's like the Madden curse of fantasy football. And
100%.
Everybody wanted to, you know, make fun of me and thinking I was complaining about having the best pick of the draft because I had the number 1 pick. It's not always what it's cracked up to be. You know, you get the long wait in between every pick, followed by back-to-back picks, and then you wait 24 picks to your next one. And then you're so dependent on that number 1 pick. And the number 1 pick, seemingly every year, if you go with the consensus anyways, they get injured. So next year, if I get it, I'm not taking the consensus 101.
Listen, I have been playing fantasy football since I was in college, and I have never once that I can remember. I was thinking about that today. Never once that I can remember have had the first overall pick. I've had the second pick, I've had the third pick, but I've never had the number overall picks. I don't want to hear it, man. Just because you're a little fake dude won a 40-yard dash, you got the first overall pick this year.
I mean,
it
mean,
does suck that Justin Jefferson
you're
got
still
hurt.
undefeated. You had the 11th pick of the draft, so you know.
Yeah.
What are you gonna complain about?
Nothing. We're
okay.
Cruising.
Exactly.
The Mad Titans. I'll say we are a lot better than I thought I was going to be when I picked that team. I was not real happy. ESPN had me projected to finish 9th out of 11 this year, and currently your boy's sitting in first place right now. Let's go. Yeah. Shout out.
You've had a good season. I'm with you though. I would not have expected that based on your team.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, again, I told you right after. I was like, we're good, not great. I think we'll middle of the road, but here we are, 5-0 somehow.
Yeah. So, anyways, we'll get to some more fantasy football at the end of the show. Today, we do want to. It's bye week for Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Oh, you hadn't said your beef yet. Okay.
No,
Well, I was going to intro what your beef was going to lead into, and so you go ahead.
Hold your horses here. Drew, we share one team that we like together. That's the Memphis Grizzlies. Rocking the shirt tonight. We're back. 2-0 in preseason basketball after an overtime win. It 100%.
It matters.
It does. It does matter to see Zaire Williams has actually gained weight. Yeah. It matters to see David Roddy and Desmond Bane have trimmed up a little bit, and Des got a haircut. But
yeah,
I think my beef really is with Desmond Bane, and not necessarily anything that Desmond has done wrong. The NBA top 100, nothing wrong. The NBA top 100 players was dropped today, or it's been being progressively dropped, and we're down to number 11. We don't have the top 10 yet, but I have seen enough to know that I have beef with this list. It's terrible. The NBA, being a fan of the Memphis Grizzlies, we are a fan of a small market team. We don't get the hype or the pub that the Nets or the Lakers or the Bulls or the Heat ever will. We never will get that because we're a small market team. They're also on a mission to punish Ja Morant still for boneheaded decisions that he made.
Right.
Ja Morant is a top 15, borderline top 10 player in the NBA. There's not many people who are more acrobatic and athletic and
last year he was ranked 9th.
Exactly. 1 year later, after he had a stellar campaign when he wasn't suspended or hurt, they have him ranked as the 35th best player in the NBA.
Yeah.
They also have Jaren Jackson Jr. outside the top 30. They have Desmond Bane ranked as the 60th best player in the league. There are not 60 players better than Desmond Bane, who had a monster year in Ja's absence last year. Right. Just a couple names ahead of him. Jarrett Allen, center for the Cavs. DeAndre Ayton, who has not done anything anytime.
Just got traded. Yeah.
LaMelo Ball, not buying that. I mean, we don't know anything about Victor Wembanyama, but he's 47th.
Yeah.
Julius Randle. Now, he can
Julius Randle's a stat machine.
But is he better than Desmond Bane? I don't think so. Tyrese Maxey from the Sixers is a good six man. He's a good quality plug and play player. But I think, and it's funny, I've been following on Twitter today. Ja's Twitter fingers have been active today.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of that?
Welcome back to Petty Ja. I love it. He's back.
I love it. Did you see he changed his Twitter, his banner? The image above it is from El Dorado with all the knives pointed at him.
Yeah. Is that what that was from?
I think it's from El Dorado.
I thought it was from Tangled. But anyways.
I don't know. I've never seen Tangled. Anyway, one of those Disney movies, Pixar movies, whatever. I got beef with this list because they don't have a single Memphis Grizzly in the top 30 after having 2 in the top 30 last year. Because if I remember right, Jaren was like mid-20s, and then Ja was.
I don't know. I think I'd have to look up Jaren's. I don't know that he was that high last year. But yeah, Ja being 35th is just so. It's the dumbest thing because it's headline based and it's not substance based. It's not statistics based. The only reason he dropped, 26 spots is because he brandished a gun in a nightclub and then brandished a gun in his personal vehicle. Well, not illegal. The second one, second offense is worse than the first because you did it twice, I guess. But the second time wasn't illegal. Mm-hmm. He served a 25-game suspension because it was a second offense. But that is the only reason that they have dropped him down to the 35th player in the league. And this is, I don't know where they get these numbers. I'm sure it's voted on by a bunch of media nerds. Players above Ja Morant, you can just, a second-year player like Paolo Banchero, I'll give you Mikal Bridges. I'll give you Jalen Brunson. I think they're really good. I'm high on them. I think they're good players. I don't think they're better than Ja, but they're not egregious. Lauri Markkanen is trash. Brandon Ingram, he ain't never won nothing.
No.
Karl Anthony Towns, Trae Young is the most egregious. You can't tell me right now if you're drafting a team, and this is the way they should make a big bracket. This is how they should decide this. Yes. Who would you want on your team? If you polled 100 people and put Ja Morant versus Trae Young, 100 people would say they'd rather have Ja Morant than Trae Young.
100%. Trae Young goes silent in big games. He's 1-0, done nothing, been to the playoffs one time. Yeah. And that's it.
And went to the Eastern Conference Finals, had an incredible run, let's be honest. But Trae Young is he is a point guard that doesn't make players around him better.
And he is very streaky.
He is somehow he is a very streaky 3-point shooter, but somehow he gets so much credit for his handles and how he passes the ball, his accuracy passing, but it somehow does not translate to making his teammates better. It's the most mind-boggling thing in the world that anybody would go to bat for Trae Young, especially over somebody, two-time All-Star, All-NBA guy like Ja Morant, whose only mistake is wanting to flash a handgun every once in a while.
Yeah.
And that is a mistake. That's not a basketball mistake. That's a personal mistake.
This should purely be based off of on-court performance and antics, not off-court. Like, off-court aside, Ja Morant's one of the top 10 players in the NBA. Like, you could ask any player, any coach, any media pundit that's being honest. He's one of the top 10 players in the NBA. This is purely based on off-court. Because even in the description on ESPN.com about him and about the Grizzlies, they both mention all about Ja's off-court stuff derailing his season. Like, cool. When he's on the court, he's going to dominate.
That's like saying Leonardo DiCaprio is not one of the greatest actors of all time because he doesn't like any women over the age of 25.
Exactly. Exactly.
It has nothing to. I mean, it has nothing to do with acting.
No.
Ja's being punished for something that has nothing to do with basketball. And if you're telling me that this list, if they make this disclaimer for saying the top 300 players that we want to invest in for the 23-24 season, okay, I'll give you that because you're subtracting 25 games off the top from Ja.
Sure.
So you're having, the ceiling can only go so high. He's not eligible for any postseason awards this year. He's, he was not going to be an all-star. He's not going to be all NBA because he's not eligible. None of this stuff he's going to be eligible for. He's still going to be a very good player, a top 10, top 15 player in the NBA this year in games that he's playing, and he should be treated as such. And it's frustrating. I mean, on one hand, I'm like, is Ja, you should have known better. Obviously, you can't make that mistake. You definitely can't make it twice. And so this is your bed. You've got to lie in it. Your name has been smeared by your own doing. However, this is a basketball list. This is talking about basketball. This isn't
100%.
Top 100 basketball players that have never made a mistake. What? It's just not that. And so Desmond Bane is honestly more egregious to me than Ja, being at 6. You said 60.
60.
He was.
They're 61. He's 61st. They've got 60 players better than him. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah. So Desmond Bane you can't find me 60 better players than Desmond Bane. He is an elite shooting guard. I think he makes another leap this year. I'd be shocked if he's not an all-star. Here maybe next week or maybe the next, we can give some bold predictions for the Grizzlies season before tip-off against the Pelicans in a couple weeks. So maybe look for that for us. That's something we can prepare for you guys. But this is a college football podcast right now. That's what we're going to get to. The Grizzlies are 2-0. You can't win all 4 preseason games if you don't win the first 2.
Exactly.
I have some takes, but we're going to do Grizzlies whole.
Listen,
try to capture them as a whole in maybe a future episode.
Here's what we'll do. So this week will be exclusively college football because that's what the people want. Next week, with State and Ole Miss off, I think we can tackle playoff baseball. Yeah. We can talk about the Grizzlies a little bit. So if you're a Grizz fan, if you're a Major League Baseball fan, next week will definitely be an episode you don't want to miss. But for now, the only thing that matters is college football. And so we're back after week 6, which was a good week of football. There were some good games, one of the best games I've ever seen in the Red River rivalry. Messed that up last week, not doing it this week. But Drew, we both went 3-3 on our picks against the spread. You hit on Texas, you hit on LSU, and I was 30 seconds away from getting that. Yes, that's 3 weeks in a row. I've had Notre Dame screwed me twice, and now LSU. Or I'd have had a phenomenal pick, but you hit on LSU.
You would have still been very far below 500. But.
Absolutely. I still am. And then you hit on North Carolina.
You should feel really stupid about that pick. Yeah. They beat the brakes off of Syracuse.
Drew texted me at some point Saturday and said, have you checked the Syracuse score lately?
You didn't respond.
I did. I said something. I don't know anymore what I said, but I did respond. The three I hit on is Alabama beating A&M, Georgia, Kentucky. Man,
Yeah.
talk about a beatdown. Like
I
we
thought
said
we
on this
both took
podcast.
Kentucky on that one.
No, I took Georgia because I said this, like Georgia hasn't flexed their muscles yet. And then you said, this feels like the week they do, but I'm taking Kentucky.
Right.
And I took Georgia and boy, did they flex those muscles.
Right. That's true.
And then I took Arkansas to cover, not beat Ole Miss, but to cover. And it was a touchdown ball game. Again, it was just a kooky game. We'll get into all that here in a minute, but man, like great football. That LSU Missouri game was incredible. Missouri made their tails off and just ran out of gas.
Well, they had some really poor coaching decisions down the stretch there. True. You get down by 3, and you just had some really weird calls there. Their last offensive drive before the pick, and then LSU gets the ball back, and of course the backbreaker cover pick 6 is just an absolute backbreaker for anybody who had Missouri on that game, because the whole game they were winning most of that game, and LSU came back, and it kind of felt for LSU like this is going to be a repeat of 2 weeks ago at the Ole Miss game, where it's just an offensive showdown, and whoever gets the final stop is going to win. LSU got that win, but they are by no means out of the doghouse this year. I was wrong about them. And I was wrong about them. Yeah. But I still stand by my pick, like what I knew at the time. I would have never thought that defense would turn into what it is. I mean, my goodness, they are absolutely atrocious on defense. Ole Miss, one thing,
They are 122nd out of 130 FBS teams in pass defense.
Right.
It's a
and
nightmare.
And their stats were bad going into Ole Miss, but a lot of people chalked Ole Miss up to, they've got a high-powered offense. You got Judkins, you've got Dart, you've got Lane. People are willing to say that Ole Miss is capable of scoring a lot of points. But then you follow that up by giving up a lot of points to Missouri, which people don't expect. Now, Missouri's a lot better than people give them credit for. That's what we're learning right now about Missouri. Yeah. But for LSU for them to have the aspirations that they had going into the season, that was an absolute, backbreaker for them. They're just not up to snuff. It's just not going to work well for them this year. They've still only got, they've still only got one loss in the SEC. So there's in the races as Ole Miss is right now. But it's just
the West
it's not
is
going
still
to matter,
wide open for 3 teams. I mean, there's still 3 teams that could theoretically win the West with some kookiness. But I mean, Missouri showed up, man. We were wrong on Missouri. Everybody was wrong on Missouri. They have played great football. That Kansas State was a great win. This was almost a really good win.
Yeah, that Kansas State win doesn't look good anymore.
Not as good as it did, true. But they still got a lot of winnable football games ahead of them. But yeah, man, LSU has got to get some stuff figured out, or Alabama's going to walk away from them. They're not going to play well. They've got some tough games ahead of them that they've got to fix things on defense, much like Mississippi State. But man, how about that Texas-Oklahoma game? Again, another bad beat. I had Texas in that. And they were
Dylan Gabriel driving the length of the field in like a minute and some change to go score with 14 seconds to go. It was just an absolute
what a game
thriller of a game, and another game that I was on the right side of.
Yeah. I felt like at the end of it, it's like Maximus from Gladiator. Are you not entertained?
Right.
Like I could have watched that game all day. I was hoping for overtime so we'd get more football because it was just too good to end, and it ended in dramatic fashion. It was fantastic. Just great, entertaining college football.
And it's a lot of fun thinking about too, because that's the last year. This is the last year. That's a Big 12 game. That's an SEC game going forward.
100%.
And that's super exciting for us because it's one of the non-conference games, from an SEC point of view. It's one of the non-conference games that's circled on my calendar every year. You got the game, Michigan, Ohio State. You've got USC, Notre Dame. I mean, there's a list of big games that you're paying attention to as an SEC fan, just as a football fan.
Yeah.
Next year, we're going to have skin in the game with that. And it's exciting going forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things that are come out of that. Having the Red River rivalry in the SEC is going to be great. They're going to keep it at the Texas State Fair because that's just one of the most just insane atmospheres in college football. And there's no way you can look
It's one
at
of the few neutral site games that I'm good with. Yeah.
Yeah, because like Florida and Georgia playing in Jacksonville, there ain't nothing about that neutral site. Nothing about that. Arkansas and Texas A&M at Jerry World, nothing about that neutral site. But this is it's an electric scene, one of the best atmospheres in college football every year, and usually outside of maybe a handful of games in my lifetime has been a classic football game.
Oh yeah, it's one of the greats. It's one of those games that doesn't matter the record. The vitriol for the teams fuel performances in that game, much like the Egg Bowl does.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have a rivalry game of that magnitude and of that vitriol in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
Instead of, packing all of those games into the last week of the season after either on Thanksgiving or, the Friday or Saturday after Thanksgiving, you've got so much passion. It's nice to have that spread out, And
I love that it's in the middle of the day. I love that it's a 12 o'clock kick. Like you get that early in the day and then you're hyped and ready for the evening games. It doesn't interfere with some of those other ones. Like it's the standalone game at that 12 o'clock hour.
Yeah, and shame on Notre Dame for going and losing to Louisville because it totally watered down the USC Notre Dame game this weekend, which 100%. Is another game that I'm always a fan of. Mm-hmm. That, you look at that was the Bush push game back in 04 or 05, whenever that was, with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and all those guys. Lindell White. There was the Bush push game, and there's so many legendary USC Notre Dame games that it's always circled on my calendar. And they really watered it down by going and losing to Louisville this week.
It's another one of the games that records don't matter. I agree. I think it'll still be a good game. They're one of our picks for this week. It's a 2.5 point spread, but Sam Hartman just absolutely crapped the bed with 5 picks. And after playing just heroic football against Duke and leading them back for that game, just to go out and absolutely lay an egg and lose to Louisville, who's not bad, but he ain't got no business beating Notre Dame. Louisville's 5-1, but.
Yeah, Jeff Brom has done a really good job. I believe this is his first year there, right? Taking over for Satterwhite.
Yeah.
Jeff Brom, former legend of the XFL. I don't know if you've ever seen that clip.
I saw it today. Yeah. Do I have a pulse? Yes. Let's play football.
Yeah. After just getting obliterated. Yeah. But Jeff Brom is such a good coach. They should have hired him instead of hiring Satterwhite, but he had just gotten to Purdue when that happened, and he didn't want to leave Purdue after 1 year. But he's such a good coach. And they've built a program. They built it fast. It's kind of the point I was making last week about Mississippi State and why, if you're not convinced that Arnett's the guy, go hire somebody that is, because there are ways, if you embrace them, to build your team quick and to instill a culture quickly.
We'll get to that here in a bit. I've got some thoughts on Mississippi State. We'll spend plenty of time on that. But
back to Notre Dame, though, just for a second. They played that game against Louisville and lost, and I couldn't help but think that is just a result of the schedule that they've played. If you think 2 weeks ago, they go and play a nail-biter against Duke, and then the week before that, they lose a heartbreaker at home to Ohio State. And then they go on the road to Louisville, who is just, number 25. They're, little pesky team. They've got a little spark to them, but you're not really scared of them. Mm-hmm. And it was a real letdown game. It was a letdown spot. It's sandwiched in between Duke, which isn't a big game. It's not a trap game, but it was a big environment with College Game Day being there. But sandwiched between Ohio State, Duke, and then you've got Louisville. And then you're thinking, okay, now next week we've got USC. It was a trap game, and they fell square into that trap. Hartman was bad. 100%. Marcus Freeman is just a bad coach. I'm gonna be on that. I'm there now. They made a real mistake. They made a Matt Luke hire and got emotional, and they got mad at Brian Kelly for leaving and going to LSU. And I think they were so scared that Brian Kelly was going to take his lead assistant, being Marcus Freeman, that they just made Marcus Freeman the head coach. And that's a job where you can basically handpick whoever, they may not be nationally like championship caliber or they have not had luck in the playoff, but that's one of the programs with a name and a history that they could handpick their next coach. You know,
you could go get an Urban Meyer. You could go get a big time college name.
You could have gone and gotten Luke Fickell. They just didn't want to wait on Luke Fickell. But they would have got Luke Fickell, who went to Wisconsin. He would have left Cincinnati to go to Notre Dame. You could have gone and got a, Ryan
just
Day.
About anybody.
You could go pick your, you're not going to have 5 people tell you no.
No.
And you can find 5 people that are more qualified for the Notre Dame job than Marcus Freeman.
The only people that might say no would be Nick Saban.
Yeah, Nick Saban.
End of list.
You could convince me that Lincoln Riley wouldn't leave.
Maybe
now.
End of list. Really, I mean, like
outside of that,
you go to Lane Kiffin, you go to Sark, you go to any of these guys, and they're going. You go to Notre Dame. That's not a job that you turn down often.
Yeah, I can't really think of a job. Harbaugh wouldn't leave Michigan.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I just
the end of list. Like there's not many people.
And it's my thing with Ole Miss and Mississippi State is like, Mississippi State maybe not as much, but it's like you go and you throw your best punch, you give your best pitch, and you make a bunch of people tell you no, but you start at the top of the list.
Yeah.
You don't start with the interim and then try to figure out a way to get someone else while you don't try to thread that needle. No, you just let Marcus Freeman follow Brian Kelly because you know that they're better options than Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, and Mississippi State did the exact same thing. We made an emotional hire promoting Zach Arnett because he was a Leach guy.
It was a little different, though. Yeah,
it was. I mean, again, the circumstances were tough. They were trying to keep that team together. But I still think you make phone calls and then try and keep Arnett as the DC because we see what's going on now. Again, we'll get. I've got thoughts on all of that. We'll get into that here in just a bit. A couple more games I do want to touch on though. Alabama A&M, just a absolute slugfest.
Alabama's
stepped up
gotten
and won
it right.
that game. They figured it out, man. They're finna win the friggin' West. They're going to beat LSU. They're not going to lose to Auburn. They're going to go play Georgia and Atlanta. They're fixing it. Their only blemish is going to be Texas this year. You heard it here first. They're fixing to go 8-0 in the SEC.
Yeah, it's hard to envision a situation where they don't. This week they've got Arkansas coming to their place. They're going to beat them by 50.
Yeah.
Then, you look at potential losses. You've got Tennessee at home. Mm-hmm. You've got LSU at home.
Yep.
And your road games are Kentucky and Auburn. Yeah. Like, there's just not much there for Alabama. They've kind of gone through the, Ole Miss, Texas, and Texas A&M are by far their hardest matchups so far this year.
Yep.
Going forward, it's kind of shaken out to where Tennessee's not as threatening as you thought they were.
Right.
They may have a bullet or two in the chamber, but I'm not believing in Joe Milton. LSU is flawed as they can be. And then you've got, at Kentucky and at Auburn, and Auburn's a rivalry game, but Alabama typically beats Auburn when Alabama's better than Auburn.
And the only time it doesn't happen is when it's at Auburn. Kooky things happen. Like Hugh Freeze always has that one game that he wins every year. He's not supposed to. It's not that game. I think it could be this weekend. I'm not going to. I wouldn't bet on it.
He's not using the silver. He's not saving the silver bullet for Alabama. He's saving it for Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
100%. But I was impressed. We talked last week about Texas A&M's defensive line, and shout out Alabama's offensive line.
Good.
But Alabama's offensive line they gave Milroe time, and when they gave him time, he threw the ball really well. A couple of those touchdown passes to Jermaine Burton, like he threw the ball well, and when he didn't have time, he ran. And so Alabama's offensive line is not good, but they played really well against one of the best front four in the SEC. And got him a win. McClellan ran the ball pretty well. Milroe made really good decisions, and Alabama is once again death taxes, and Alabama figures it out at Mississippi State, and then they win out the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's like you look at what they do at the half. They did this. Ole Miss was up 7-3 at the half. They ended up beating us. What was it? 24-10.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, they just ran all over. It was a clinic the whole game. And then against A&M this week, it was 10. A&M was up 14-10 at the half. Mm-hmm. Then Alabama went on to outscore them 16-3 in the second half. They just sit on you. It's what Alabama used to do so well, and Lane Kiffin kind of took them out of. Lane Kiffin modernized Nick Saban's offense. Nick Saban never wanted to go to the spread. He wanted to do the A.J. McCarron way and the Mark Ingram way. But Lane he brought in Lane to modernize his offense, and he did. But the problem is now Jalen Milroe is not the quarterback to run that system, and so they've just reverted back to, AJ McCarron offense, except you've got an athletic quarterback, and they're just sitting on you with defense. Jalen Milroe, he did throw the ball 33 times, went 21 of 33, 3 touchdowns and a pick. And whoa, can you guess how many yards he rushed for? Jalen Milroe. McClellan had 12 for 45. Jalen Milroe had less than that.
Oh, wow. 36.
No, he had, 76 fewer yards.
Wow.
He rushed 8 times for negative 31 yards.
All those sacks. The sacks counting against rushing yards, that's a weird stat.
That's the thing. A&M's defensive front is so good. I was going to see if the ESPN don't show sacks as
I don't think they sacked him that many times.
Let's see. All right, so they had 6 sacks.
Okay.
6 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 2 deflections. So A&M's good. A&M is a lesser version than Alabama, which is like Alabama light. They don't have the potent offense, but they've got a really, really good defensive front. And Alabama, they just sat on them in that second half. They got a lead and sat down. That's the best way I can do it. I know, I saw a story. They were talking about the way that Saban puts it. His terminology is when you get ahead, he calls it taking the air out of the ball. He'll just get on the headset and he's like basically talking to the offensive play callers like, all right, we're going to take the air out of the ball here. Lane's first game against Tennessee, Alabama was beating them bad when Lane was the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Alabama was beating them bad, and Saban got on the headset and he's like, all right, take the air out of the ball. And first play, I can't remember what receiver it was, one of their dynamic ones. Maybe it was Calvin Ridley. He ran a double move for Calvin Ridley for like a 75-yard touchdown, and Saban just lit into him. And Lane just looked at him. He's like, I didn't know what it meant, but it felt good.
Yeah, man. Alabama's figured it out. A&M is good on defense. I just don't know that Jimbo Fisher is their head coach next year. It feels prime for if they start on a losing streak, and they could very well lose this weekend at Tennessee with an emotional letdown. It feels like he might be coaching for his job, especially with Bobby Petrino there as the OC. Like, you got a natural interim head coach if Jimbo's let go. I know that buyout is really, really high, and I know that the likelihood of him getting fired midseason is low, but it's there. I mean, him and Kevin Sumlin at this point in his tenure at A&M is one game better and $40 million cheaper. Yeah,
I kind of have a hard time giving Kevin Sumlin a lot of credit though for Johnny Manziel.
Sure. No, I get that, but that's not giving Sumlin credit. That's more showing that Jimbo Fisher is Kevin Sumlin light. You know what I mean? Like, they're the
but
same
what
coach.
I'm saying is if you give Jimbo Johnny Manziel, he'd probably win a title.
Maybe.
Well, something someone couldn't do.
Yeah, that's probably fair. That's probably fair.
But I'm not here to make, be the devil's advocate in favor of Jimbo. It doesn't seem like his seat's hot yet. They got 2 losses at Miami and Alabama. Anais Smith is a game breaker at receiver and punt return and kick return for them. If
he's
you're
also
on
one of the
special
top 5 guys in NIL money in the country.
He should be.
Mm-hmm.
If Ole Miss has got them on the horizon here in the next 2 or 3 games, you've got to keep the ball away from Anais Smith on special teams. He will win a game on special teams, like Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah. So the remaining schedule, they're at Tennessee this weekend. Then they have a bye week, and then they play South Carolina at home, at Ole Miss, State at home, Abilene Christian at home, and then at LSU. I mean, that Ole Miss game, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and LSU being 3 road games are probably those are going to be tough games for them to win. Yeah. And so you have to go 3-0 those other games. Mississippi State, for whatever reason, we play our best game against A&M every year. Jimbo Fisher's actually only he's 3-4 against State in his 7 years there. That's a game they'll probably win because it's at home, but that's not a guaranteed win. South Carolina's so hot and cold, you never know what's going to show up. I mean, the path to another 7-5 season is very much there.
Yeah, and as an Ole Miss fan, all I'm looking for now is I'm not rooting for teams specifically, but I'm rooting for outcomes that benefit Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the SEC West looks now with LSU being down is I really need that Texas A&M game because I think there's a path if Ole Miss were to run the table, including upsetting Georgia, which I know is a big ask, especially now that they've flexed their muscles.
Yeah.
But if you go 11-1, then you're not going to make it to Atlanta because Alabama, we think, is going to make it to Atlanta. So what's your case for the top 4 seed? Because there is a case that can be made that say if Ole Miss, Alabama, and Georgia all have a loss and Ole Miss doesn't go to the SEC championship game, but the loser has 2 losses and knocks them out, what's the case for 2 SEC teams? It's been done before.
But
for that to be done before, Ole Miss's case has got to be like, well, we've had big wins. And an A&M team that finishes 7-5 with a loss to Ole Miss is not a big win.
Mm-mm.
LSU has got a loss and to Ole Miss. They got a loss to Florida State, and they're going to have a loss to Alabama. That doesn't look as good of a win. So you need resume wins. So right now, this weekend, I'm rooting for Texas A&M for the duration, except for against Ole Miss, because I need that A&M win to look good.
100%. Like the precedent is there. If this was next year when it's a 12-team playoff, then
you're in.
Ole Miss is in with 1 loss.
10-2 SEC team is in every single year.
Absolutely. They will be one of those at-large teams. Like you said, you even have some wiggle room. You could lose again and be like lose to if your 2 losses are Alabama and Georgia, you're 100% one of the top 12 teams in the country.
Right.
And so, a lot of good football ahead. I think we'd be remiss not to at least mention what is Mario Cristobal doing? Like it happens. It happens all the time. He never kneels.
Yeah. So Miami not taking a knee with 25 seconds to go, and Georgia Tech has no timeouts is the most baffling thing I've ever seen. And shame on Cristobal. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if it's arrogance of saying, I'm not giving up. I'm going to run the ball. We still have opportunities to score, so we're going to score. I don't know if it's obviously something like that is his mindset. Shame on him for not making the call. Shame on the OC. If it was Cristobal's call, the OC falling on his sword is shameful. The OC should have overruled it, or shame on the quarterback for saying, hey, getting the play call in saying, no, that's stupid. I'm just going to take a knee. Van Dyke has been there long enough to where nobody knows, he's not going to be in the doghouse for taking a knee and winning the game, for not running the play that's called. Just take a knee. The running back, when he's handed the ball, take a knee. Whoever touches the ball should have known they needed to take a knee there. It lands on Cristobal as it should. It's a 100%. Cristobal. It's something that Cristobal has done at every single stop he's been. He did it at Oregon. It cost him a loss against Stanford a few years back. I believe it was Dan Wolken put out a tweet that went through every game that Miami has won this year, and they've won, every game except this one.
Mm-hmm.
And in every single situation, including this one, they have never taken a knee. They run the ball. They run the clock out by running the ball every time. It's the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
And not only to run the play, fumble, and then the defenders to let the receiver behind them twice is just that was the easiest touchdown pass of all time for Haynes King as the clock expired. You got 4 defenders there, and they're all chasing a receiver. It's not a great play. It was a total lack of.
By Georgia Tech. And because he rolls out, he's being chased. There's a guy hot on his heels, and he just Brett Favre, Johnny Manziel gunslings that thing down. It was a total bust by Miami, but it was a great throw for the touchdown for the win for Georgia Tech. And like you said, it's one thing if you're up 30, but this was a 1-possession game that you're running the football. When you take one knee, sure, you're surrendering, you're giving up whatever. No, you're getting a win. If you take one knee, it's lights out.
And Cristobal got to the press conference and tried to throw everybody under the bus, and the media there just wasn't taking it to the point where he was finally just like, fine, I guess you're right, I should have taken a knee. But not before he tried to throw his quarterback under the bus and the offensive coordinator under the bus. Just a terrible person. It screams of a lack of leadership, accountability. He is just a meathead. And it just goes to show you that college football coaches and college football players, but coaches in particular, are put on such a high pedestal for what they do and for coaching this team that we all care about. but they're all just a bunch of meatheads.
Yeah.
That's where they all start. Most of them never grow out of it and develop because they never like get out of a locker room for their whole life. And so they get there and their mentality is just like, I'm just going to score points and I'm going to beat them to the ground. And I don't care what it looks like. I'm not going to take any prisoners. I'm not going to show any weakness. It's a flawed personality take. And it shows that football coaches are not that much different than the people that are playing Madden. You know,
100%.
Like they've got the same character flaws. They're no smarter than anybody else. In fact, they're a normal person. They're probably a little bit thicker skulled.
Yeah, that wouldn't go for it on a fourth down at their own 20 or not take a knee at the end of a game. Right. Like, you make good decisions to win football games, but Mario Cristobal apparently is incapable. Whatever chemical in your brain,
offense.
It is.
That athletic director, if he would have fired him right then and there, maybe not after the game itself, but then after he tried to blame everybody else for the decision, I'd have been like, no, man, I'm not putting up with this. Pack your bags, you're out.
Yeah, you're sure you're 5-1 now, but that one is ugly, and you blamed everybody but yourself. So
and 2 years ago, when everybody wanted to do the Lane to Miami thing, well, they hired their quote unquote number one option in Mario Cristobal. Don't ever talk to me again about Miami being a good job. No. They were 5-0. And Lane harps on Ole Miss's student section. He's griped ever since he got here until this year when we've had sellout after sellout and huge, big game environments. And he has bragged on us this year, but it's the first time that he has ever bragged on Ole Miss for showing up for games. You think him and how much he cares about in-game experience and participation and packing seats and not leaving early, if any coach that cares about that ever entertains the idea of going to Miami, they're doing nothing more than receiving a paycheck.
100%. But Miami,
it's a garbage college. It's a garbage football program. They don't care about it.
No,
you can say there's money there, but money from donors is not the same as fan participation and fan buy-in. It's not the correlate. There's not a correlation there at Miami.
I think we can officially say the U is dead. It's not.
They are dead. They've been dead. They've been dead since Ken Dorsey left.
Yeah, since early 2000s, since you were still in diapers, they've been dead. So
I was 10 years old in 2002. I wasn't wearing diapers. I wear them now, but not then.
That's probably fair. All right, let's get into our teams. I'll go with State first because I'm not going to beat a dead horse because I could sit here and just belabor the same things.
It is a dead horse, let me tell you.
So the offense has gotten better. I'll give him credit where credit's due. Will Rogers has stepped up and made good plays. He's looked better. We let Mike Wright throw the football a couple times this week. It was very, and don't take this the wrong way. Let me explain myself. Very Tim Tebow-esque. He's got this long wind up, and it takes him forever to get rid of the football. That's why I said let me finish. That's why I said let me finish.
Point quick. Yeah.
It's just this looping wind up, and it's in against an elite SEC defense. He might throw 6 picks. He made good decisions. He ran the ball well, but Will Rogers stepped up. He had a good game. The offensive line was better, but still not great. Gave up entirely too many sacks to a MAC defense. But this defense is awful. Awful. And I've been on this podcast and apologized in the past for where I was wrong and owned up. And I'm apologizing to our listeners and our fans. I was wrong about Mississippi State's defense. I thought returning 7 starters would make us a better defense. I bought into the hype that Matt Brock taking over was going to run Zach Arnett's system and there would be continuation there. There has been none. This defense is so bad. When you blitz 7 against 5, especially against a MAC team, somebody needs to be hitting home. And we weren't breaking through. Drew, it wasn't their starting quarterback. It wasn't their second string quarterback. We gave up 317 yards and 80% completion to a third string MAC quarterback who transferred in from Old Dominion. He played at ODU last year, transfers to Western Michigan, and then cooks Mississippi State. Our MO on offense so far, or on defense so far this year, is that we get cooked by their number one receiver. Like whoever your best receiver is against Mississippi State has a strong chance of being your conference's player of the week. And we got cooked again. We gave up 413 yards to Western Michigan's offense. You heard it here first. Ole Miss might go for 1,000 in the Egg Bowl because this defense is trash. The secondary is so out of place. And, I was keeping up with it on Twitter and a couple more things before I get to that. They didn't even have the NCAA rushing leader is at Western Michigan right now. He didn't play because of a hamstring injury. This is the 4th straight quarterback. Now, one of these is not like the other, right? It was let's see, it would have been Spencer Rattler, Jaden Daniels, Milroe, and now this quarterback from Western Michigan, 4th straight. Yeah. Well, 4th straight quarterback with an above 70% completion rate. It's an embarrassing time to be a fan of Mississippi State football, especially on the defensive side, where even in the years where we're bad and cannot score points, our defense has always been serviceable. It's always been physical. It's always been a game that you dread playing because you're going to get hit in the mouth. You're probably going to get a win, but you're going to feel it. Arnett has to take over this defense. We've got 6 games left, and he has got to coach like his career depends on it, because it does. Like we talked about last year, his seat is very hot because the athletic director who's there now, Zach Selman, did not make this hire. He has been tasked with improving what is a bad football team, a bad football program right now, and just the whole experience, game day experience. I could go on a whole tirade about this, and maybe
there's nothing worse than rooting for a bad team.
And especially when, like, you look at Ole Miss, and here we go, another compliment for Ole Miss, 2 weeks in a row. I'm getting soft in my old age, but that game day experience against Arkansas was incredible. That LED light show, incredible.
Yeah. The drones, did you see the drones?
Incredible.
Yeah.
And the other thing Ole Miss does is, and every other friggin' program in the country, is very much fan-centered in their game day experience. There is music, there is games, there's the light show, there's the drones that keep fan engagement. Mississippi State is too worried about being now as our sponsor of the Mississippi Beef Council.
That's funny you mentioned that, because it was one of my biggest beefs, and it started when Lane got to Ole Miss, the turnaround. Mm-hmm. But Ole Miss was the same way. Everybody it's all about fan interaction and, short attention span for younger fans. It's, Gen Z people or, old people griping, but it was like everything that Ole Miss did was catering to the old, for the first time out in the second quarter, every week they would bring their M Club Hall of Fame inductee down there, and everybody meet the biggest donor and the faculty star of the year, the next one. It was an absolute bore for every single time out, and everybody's like, fine, I'll go get a beer, I'll go get some nachos, whatever, and then we'll come back, and then there's nothing. The atmosphere, if the game sucks, the atmosphere's got to be good. But if the team is good, it's even more important that the atmosphere be good, because you 100%. Look at what Ole Miss put out. I've never seen anything like it at Ole Miss as an Ole Miss fan and a season ticket holder for 10 years, up till, a few years back. I've never seen an atmosphere like that. It was a party. It felt like a Grizzlies game where in the timeouts, you got Grizz getting up and leading chants, or you've got, it's always something, games, prizes,
Yeah. Lane Kiffin has done a great job of capturing this, like, come to the SIP thing and making it a party. And that's what it is. It's a party atmosphere. At Mississippi State, it's a snooze fest. It feels like you're sitting in like an Edward Jones office and you just happen to be watching football on TV.
You're getting your taxes done.
That's it. Like, you're sitting with your CPA. He's punching on the computer and you're looking over to the left watching football on TV. Like, it's the most boring thing. And that's got to be Zach Selman's, like, priority number one is fixing the football coach, because I just don't think Zach Arnett's it, man. Especially if we finish with 4 wins. If our only 2 remaining wins, let's say we beat, so we're 3-3. We beat Southern Miss. We go 0-8 in SEC play. He's gone. 6-6 might save his job. 7 wins, I think. I think 7 wins is a threshold.
I see 5 wins, and next week's game against Arkansas being the
we'll
fifth,
get to that here. We'll get to that here in a minute. But, like, I think you've got like 7 wins as a threshold to keep your job. If you win 5 or 6 games, I think it's over, because Selma didn't hire you. And this is why, because Brian Haydad from the Thunder and Lightning podcast, he's on Super Talk Mississippi, one of their personalities, tweeted out in the second half, State is just bad defensively. There's no getting around that fact. Can't stop anybody. Somebody responded, is it scheme or talent? I just don't think Matt Brock is the guy. And former Mississippi State Bulldog, last year NFL draft pick, who's currently a starter for the Seattle Seahawks, in Cameron Young, a defensive tackle, he put it in perfect perspective. It's mentality. The scheme is meant for players to play fast and aggressive. We're not doing that. We just have to get back to upholding that standard collectively. We lost 7 from the defense last year. Cannot be an excuse anymore. Like, you just have to play tough. Like, there's no toughness. There's no passion. It's a direct reflection of Zach Arnett.
It is. If you're talking
time
about effort, it's
oh
coach.
my gosh. Yeah, because like last year he was this fiery just jerk, just like
he was a defensive coordinator.
He's a defensive
That's
coordinator.
what they are.
That's exactly right. They're second to the street coach of being fiery, right? And like now, like anytime we get a commitment or a recruit signs, him and the football program tweet out that gif of him just getting all excited and fired up. Where is that? He is so coach speak now that it feels like a parody. It feels like he's a parody.
That's coaches though.
But no.
Like that,
No. There are like Nick's again, I'll go back to this. Nick Saban was blistering his coaches on the sideline, crawling all over his players. Zach Arnett is standing there with the mic flipped up on his headset, arms folded, watching the game with a jumbotron, mumbling to himself. He ain't coaching nobody. Right. He ain't doing nothing. Like there's no passion, there's no fire, there's no grit, and the team is showing that, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I understand as the head coach and the representative of the program, he's being the CEO. You have to have some reserve. You can't be that big fiery guy like you were, but you got to have something. And he has swung so hard the other way that the defense is reflecting that 100%.
Yeah, it's almost it's the perfect example of you take somebody out of the role that they're meant to be. Yeah. And you took the defensive coordinator away from the defense and gave him a bigger responsibility, but because you took him away from what he's good at, both things suffer.
Right.
And you're right. And it's the thing, I didn't watch the state game this week. I watched a little bit of the Alabama game. I can't be a good judge of effort, when it comes, they all look like they're running fast to me,
It's not there.
But if you're talking about possibly getting to 6 wins or possibly even, miracle scenario getting to 7 wins, you're not winning any game if you're not putting forth an effort.
Right.
It's not in the cards for you to upset anybody. The spunky team that bites off, one of these teams that they're favored against, like Louisville and Notre Dame, Louisville's not supposed to beat Notre Dame, or, even in bigger scenarios, where you've seen Syracuse beat Clemson in the past. These situations, Syracuse team isn't good, but they care.
Yeah.
You can't upset anybody if you don't care.
And it's a direct reflection of Zach Arnett. But, and I'll get to my coaching. Well, I'll do my coaching hot board first. I don't know anything outside of 7 wins. I don't think he keeps his job.
Well, let me ask you this before you do that, because it leads into it. Given the state of, in the NBA now, or the NFL, anytime there's a draft, any professional sport with a draft, it's the worst thing to be is okay. So are you to the point with Arnett now where almost 6-6 is the worst because that gives you another year of Arnett? Or are you ready to just blow it up? Let's go 3-9 and let's get him out of there. Let's do whatever it takes necessary to throw this year away and throw him away with it.
Yes.
Are you there yet?
I think I am. Just because we're
not that
regressing.
You root for losses, but you know that it's not the worst outcome in the world.
I'm going to go out there. I'm going to wear my Mississippi State shirt. I'm going to root for Mississippi State hard every game of the rest of the season.
That's part of rooting for State, though, is rooting for long-term success, too.
Especially what today is the 9-year anniversary to the day of when State beat Auburn to become the first ever #1 college football playoff ranked team. Today, I was there, and that atmosphere, I put on Instagram today, that was the greatest atmosphere of a sporting event I've ever been at. It was electric. Complete strangers were giving me beers and hugging me and crying, and it was just an incredible experience. And then fast forward to today, and it's just a dud. And yes, Drew, you're absolutely right. I'm to the point where I love Zach Arnett and what he did for our defense, what he's done for our program. It's time to go. And here's the coaches that you call and make them tell you no before you start looking elsewhere.
Right.
Jeff Brom is the name that I would call.
He's not leaving Louisville.
I didn't say he would. I'm saying these are the people that you call and make them say no.
Okay.
Jeff Brom is one of them. Willie Fritz is another.
Willie Fritz is obtainable, I think. I think Willie Fritz would come. I think that would be a home run hire for Mississippi State.
I agree.
That's why he's number 2 on my list. Smaller school. And I think he could do well at Mississippi State.
I'm thinking of tough-nosed coaches that's going to instill some fire. Jeff Brom, Willie Fritz. Yeah. I think you call, again, these are people you call. I think you call Cliff Kingsbury. He's in that Leach tree. There's some opportunity there.
You're making too much money, NFL money right now.
but you call him.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Silverfield is a name you call at Memphis.
Really?
I think it's somebody that you call. I don't know that like he would be near the top of my list, but maybe. Mike Elko at Duke is another one that I would call.
Yeah.
I like Garrett Riley at the OC at Clemson. Ryan Grubb, the OC at Washington.
They've been really good this year.
That's what I'm saying.
Until this week. They got trounced this week by UCLA.
Then the last two names, one of them is Charles Huff from Marshall. He's got some like Southeast ties. He's a guy that could come in. He's doing good things at Marshall, and he's got some offensive mind to him. But a name that keeps coming up on Twitter, and I don't know how I feel about this. It's very mixed. Like, it feels like you're going back to the girl that stood you up at prom. Dan Mullen's name keeps coming up, and I just don't like. He was the most successful coach, and like I just don't see that going well. I really don't see a second tour going as well as the first.
Here's my thing with Mullen. Mullen wanted out. Mm-hmm. He wanted to get out of Starkville, but at that point, he was pursuing bigger jobs. He wanted out of Starkville because he had reached in his mind. He had reached the pinnacle. I mean, he went 10-2 at Mississippi State. You're not doing any better than that. So get out while you can. Get out while the iron's hot. The problem with Mullen, too, is that he's been there. He knows what the ceiling is. I don't know that he wants to do it again. Yeah. He's kind of got a cushy job right now. Two, if you're a Mississippi State fan, if you look at Mullen critically, you say if you take away Tim Tebow, Alex Smith, and Dak Prescott, what is Dan Mullen?
He won 9 games with Nick Fitzgerald.
Fair. Fair.
But also, he had Will Greer, and they couldn't do anything.
That was an elite defense, too.
That wasn't an elite defense. Yeah. Jeff Simmons was walking around that dog chain.
That was an elite defense.
It was one of the best defenses Mississippi State's ever had. But your point stands. Like, without an elite level quarterback, and maybe he can go get that. Maybe
that's the case with most coaches anyways.
Sure.
And the thing with Mullen, too, and the thing with Mississippi State, and this will be an off-season conversation if they do make a move. The thing with Mississippi State is you cannot think about old heads anymore. Mm-hmm. Guys like Dan Mullen, they become dinosaurs quicker. The older they are and the longer they're out of the profession, the more they turn into dinosaurs. And it's happened quicker and quicker with NIL, and every state's coming out with NIL, their own NIL legislation. It is hard to keep up. And for Mississippi State, you've got to find a guy that is invested in NIL. And not only that, the problem with getting a guy that is willing to dig in the transfer portal is people get in the transfer portal for 2 reasons: playing time and money.
Yep,
and not in that order. No. And Mississippi State has 0 NIL money. They are by far 13th in the SEC when it comes to NIL money.
You'd be surprised. Those pockets are deeper than what we've been given out.
You can't see it.
Again, the money is there. We're just not using it appropriate. I think Zach Selman, this is his first year as our AD. He had a big time job. This is a fact finding season, and I think we're going to see a lot of.
My point with NIL is you don't see them I don't see Mississippi State market their NIL. I see Ole Miss. Ole Miss has just signed a deal with Barstool to sell brick watches to fund their NIL. They're not getting creative. With it at all.
I was listening about that today. That is such a. That's what's his name, Mitzi or whatever his name is. That's just like a fraud thing with them, and that's all it is. Because like
it's not a fraud; it's legitimate money.
Nobody's gonna buy those watches.
It's maybe not, but it's forward thinking and finding ways to fundraise other than talking to your old boosters. You've got to come up with better ways to do it.
So the Bulldog Initiative is taking strides in that. There are businesses that are buying in.
But you can't say that they don't need to do. They've got to step their game up. They've absolutely got to step their game up.
I'm not saying that they can't. I'm saying they're taking strides to do that. We're playing in the Barstool Classic. Like, we're doing things to get our name out there. We're the reigning Barstool Classic champs in basketball. Like, we're doing things to get our name out there. It's just like we're slow to the process because we have old heads. Zach Selman is a very young, forward-thinking AD. I think we get that's why you call these guys like Willie Fritz. That's why you call these Cliff Kingsbury guys and say, hey, listen, we could be on the cusp of creating something great here. Come help us with that. I don't know that you get them, but you make those calls.
I'm as a State fan, I'd be worried that the network isn't there for an influx of money. You'd be surprised. Again, Ole Miss's was crowdsourced. if fans want to donate and really build their war chest that way, great for them. But that brick watch thing may not turn out to be anything. They may sell 100 watches, and in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. However, it's just getting Dave Portnoy to talk about it increases your following, increases your credibility.
And I think some of that is where
its image matters.
Yeah,
image matters as much as money. You got to be able to be seen as valid.
Some of that is very much because Brandon Walker is such a big voice, big personality at Barstool.
A lot of this is just a shot at Brandon Walker.
It's just shots at Brandon Walker. That's all a lot of this is.
Oh, no doubt at all that Portnoy is doing this in part to make Brandon Walker's skin crawl.
100%. And then and so
if I had $2,000, I'd buy a watch to see Brandon Walker's skin crawl.
And so that works against us, that our big troll is getting trolled by Barstool. But the last thing I'll say about Mississippi State is take heart, Mississippi State fans. We've looked awful. I mean, we have. We got beat up against Western Michigan. We had 3 guys in a boot, including our kicker, Woody Marks. And then we had Will Wright and Jeffrey Pittman in a boot. Had Will Rogers going off with a limp arm.
He has got a what was it?
Was it AC sprain? So there's a lot of rumors flying around.
I've heard for real what it is. I've got to plug in with them. With him in particular.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Dislocated non-throwing shoulder.
So he'll probably be limited during the bye week, and then there's a good chance he plays against Arkansas. Because
let me ask you this then. Mississippi State fans have been booing him. They've been chanting, "We want Mike." So now that he's gotten hurt,
mm-hmm.
do you want them to give him Mike Wright? Do you want Mike Wright to start against Arkansas in 2 weeks?
Mike Wright is the answer is not fully handed the reins over to Mike Wright. That's not.
I don't think there is an answer, but what's the most plausible? I mean, at this point, you're shooting for, you're rolling dice.
I still think it becomes more of a 2 quarterback system. I think you let Mike Wright
throw it more.
If you've got 2
quarterbacks, you don't have one.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, but I don't think that that's the right move just yet. Watching Mike Wright against Western Michigan, I don't know that it's the right move.
I mean, he was a Vanderbilt transfer, and
right.
And his, he went to Mississippi State. He didn't go to, Alabama.
Yeah.
Alabama needs a quarterback. If he was legit,
But here's what I'll say: take heart, Mississippi State fans. We're exactly where we thought we'd be. We're 3-3 at the bye week. I've got my preseason predictions right here. Southeastern Louisiana win, Arizona win, LSU lost, South Carolina lost, Alabama lost, Western Michigan win. It's exactly what I thought we'd be. Now, the on-field product has not been as good as I thought it would. It has not looked
where
good.
You thought you were. It just hadn't been as pretty as you thought.
Exactly.
It
It's an ugly 3-3. I don't know if there's a pretty 3-3, but it's an ugly 3-3.
Well, in those preseason predictions, you were like, we're going to give LSU a run for our money. We always play Alabama good.
And we did. We played Alabama good for 2.9 quarters.
Yeah.
And here's the thing I'll say, there are still very winnable games ahead of us, right?
Absolutely.
We've got Arkansas. We can beat Arkansas. We play at Auburn. The reality is we'll probably go 1-1 in those games, Arkansas and Auburn. If you go 2-0, that's pie in the sky. But I think there's no way you can tell me that Arkansas is a better team than us. We're both bad.
Oh no, teams. I don't.
So I think we win that football.
But I don't think I can't say that Mississippi State's better than Arkansas either. They're both crap.
I said we're both bad football teams.
They're both crap. Yeah.
But I think we beat Arkansas. Auburn is a crapshoot. Like you said, Hugh Freeze is going to be gunning for us. May or may not, he probably has this game circled. May or may not. That's a game that we can win because Auburn is a bad football team. Kentucky's been exposed as a fraud. And like I said, in the last 10 games, the home team has won that game. And streaks like that, for whatever reason, they matter in college football. So that's a winnable game. You lose to A&M, you beat Southern Miss. That's 7-8. I mean, 8 wins is still I think our ceiling is now to 7 wins. Okay. There's a path to 8 wins if you get it figured out in the bye week. I'm not saying do not hear.
What do you say middle of the road? What do you think if you're looking at what ESPN would say? If you calculated it, what do you think most likely outcome on this season is?
And that's the thing. I don't put any stock in ESPN and these guys because
don't hear what I'm not saying.
No, hear me. Let me say this, then I'll circle back. every year, Ole Miss or ESPN and the pundits pick Mississippi State to win 3 ball games every single year except for 2014 and 2015. Every single year. So it's one of those things, you pick it enough, you're going to be right. And so I don't know that these people saw more than we did, that I did, that other people that prognosticate about Mississippi State, they just got it right because they say
I don't care what ESPN says about you. I was asking for your.
I'm getting back around to it. I think that they say we'll beat Arkansas, we'll beat Southern Miss, and that's it.
So 5 and 7 is what you think is the most likely outcome. I agree with that. I think that if you look down your schedule, I think if Arkansas is smart and if Sam Pittman is truly feels like he's on the hot seat and coaching for his job, which I think there's 2 coaches that are absolutely on the hot seat this year, and it is Sam Pittman and it's Zach Arnett.
Yeah.
If Sam Pittman is truly on the hot seat, he plays Alabama game as vanilla as possible, and he throws the absolute kitchen sink at Mississippi State because he knows that's the one game he can. He will be on a 5-game losing streak by the time Mississippi State strolls into town. Yep. We'll preview the Arkansas Mississippi State game next week, and I'm about to talk about Arkansas when we talk about the Ole Miss Arkansas game this week. They ain't much there.
I think if they get blown out by Alabama, they pack it in. I really do. I think if they get blown out they're a 20-point dog, and if they get blown out by Alabama,
blown out. They know that.
Think there's a real situation where they pack it in for the year.
I think if they get beat by Mississippi State, it's over. That's when they lose out. I don't think that they go into that game. That's not a letdown experience for Arkansas. Losing by 40 to Alabama, that's expected at this point. Yeah. It's not the loss that's going to cause you to quit as much as a loss at home to Mississippi State would.
Yeah, but
they would get up one last time.
The last thing I'll say about
YouTube,
yeah, 100%. The highlight. The last thing I'll say about Mississippi State, and I'll shut up and let's talk about Ole Miss. There is an absolute miracle, less than 2% chance of 8-4. The more likely scenario is 5 and 7, 6 and 6. I think 7 and 4 is the ceiling, and there's a real path to that. We're 3 and 3. You beat Arkansas, you beat Auburn, you beat Kentucky, you beat Southern Miss. That's 7 wins right there, and those are all winnable games. It's a 3-game winning streak, which again, the offense has shown growth. The defense will have to show a ton of growth to do that. But I think 7 wins is the minimum wins that, like I said, that Zach Arnett has to get to keep his job. So part of me, like you said earlier, kind of hopes that we end up more in the 5 and 7 range, just so we can. I don't know that I say I hope that, but like if that happens and Zach Arnett is no longer a head coach next year, I will be less disappointed, I think, than I would have been in years.
You will not be looking forward to the Mississippi State football season next year if you finish 6 and 6 and Zach Arnett says, "Listen, the bowl streak's still alive. I took over short term because our coach died. If you forgot, I did the best I could. Give me another year." And they roll with Arnett again. 6 and 6, Liberty Bowl gets you to either 7 and 6 or 6 and 7, and you get Zach Arnett again. That'll be like a record low season ticket sales.
Yeah, because
it'll just no life at all in the program.
Because we're losing so much next year, and unless he works that transfer portal, this, like I've been saying all year, this was supposed to be our upswing year. We're going to graduate a ton of people, and it's just going to be
right. It's a perfect scenario for a coach to come in and say, "Listen, empty, fill it up how you see fit. We're bare." You know,
because there will have to be staff changes. If Zach Arnett is the head coach next year, Matt Brock will not be the defensive coordinator next year. We wanted him fired when he was a special teams coach 2 years ago. We want him fired now as the DC. Hail State, enjoy the bye week. Mississippi State football and I are taking a break in our relationship for 1 week, and it's much needed. I think we'll come back in better terms against Arkansas. We're taking a much needed break.
Yeah, I'll talk about Ole Miss then. So Ole Miss had, you like to bring up a lot that Arkansas games always get squirrely, and historically, if there is a squirrely game, it's Arkansas. What we saw this week, it was a 7-point Ole Miss win. It was a game that I never felt was in doubt, truly in doubt. KJ Jefferson had a good game. Ole Miss defense played good. It was a game in which you need this bye week. Jackson Dart got banged up. You could tell he wasn't 100% himself. Trey Harris got hurt again. There's just injuries that have kind of stacked up in that Arkansas game that resulted in a closer game than what I predicted. I said 14-20. Ended up being 7. And Arkansas was driving in the fourth quarter to tie with the possibility of tying it, but it didn't happen that way. Arkansas's bad. I know this was a 7-point win for Ole Miss, and it wasn't necessarily pretty for Ole Miss this week. I chalked that up a lot to injuries. It's just a down game. The environment was great. Arkansas did enough to keep it close, but that offensive line is pathetic at Arkansas. If Mississippi State's looking at ways to attack Arkansas, you almost have to go back running the ball. Because their offensive
we need Woody March to be healthy.
It's one of those things. It lines up well with Mississippi State. You look at Sam Pittman as a career offensive line coach. He goes and takes a head coaching job. So you would think the offensive line at Arkansas would be incredible. They're not. They're horrible. And he's just divided his time. Arkansas started a whole new offensive line. They moved positions for three of the 5 offensive line positions had different starters. I mean, they were the same starters. They were just in different positions than the week before. And they were playing so poorly in the first half, they switched back to the original starting 5 offensive linemen from the week before. They just scrapped it. They were really bad at the offensive line. KJ Jefferson was always getting hit, and Ole Miss is not a pass rush that you're really going to go into being scared of. You've got some guys, but you've got to bring odd number blitzes to really get home if you're Ole Miss historically or this year. And they were getting home with 3 and 4 consistently against KJ Jefferson and that offensive line, and it was just not good. KJ Jefferson had a good game. He was able to sit back in the pocket and, to his credit, threw the ball better than what I thought he would.
And he had to, because Rocket Sanders is not healthy.
He's not
been healthy for weeks, and he looks so slow and banged up against Ole Miss.
He's not healthy. And KJ he's going to give out late in the season like he always does. He didn't take off and run just a whole lot against Ole Miss.
I don't know that he's healthy either.
Yeah, and he never is this, as they go down the back stretch of the season. He's always unhealthy. But they didn't look good. I think next week against Mississippi State, they're going to throw the sink at them. I think they're good enough to beat State. I think State's good enough to beat Arkansas. It's just weird. I just trust Arkansas's offense against Mississippi State's defense a lot better than I trust Mississippi State's offense against Arkansas's defense. But that's a next week conversation.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on that. But I mean, you're right. Arkansas looks banged up, and their defense couldn't stop a nosebleed right now for anything.
So Ole Miss in that game, Jackson Dart, 16 of 25, 153 and a touchdown, no interceptions. Ulysses Bentley has been a spark plug again. He is so slippery. I don't know if you've watched any of that game or. He has broken several runs for long touchdowns this year when he's spelling Quinshon Judkins in the backfield. The first guy never gets him down. He feels like a lot like Quinshon last year, where I think Quinshon put on some weight or put on a lot of muscle in the offseason. He's just not as spry or as agile, and he doesn't have that top end speed. He broke loose against Arkansas, and he rushed for 35, 40 yards and was caught from behind. And last year, that was a 75-yard run every single time to the end zone. Mm-hmm. Nobody was catching him. He just doesn't have that burst, but Ulysses Bentley does. Ulysses Bentley has been absolutely incredible. He had 13 carries for 94 yards, a 7.2-yard average, a 32-yard touchdown. Judkins was 18 for 65, a 3.5-yard average, did have 1 touchdown. Ole Miss just didn't have their best game. It's a game that you survived, and in the past, it's part of it. Just adds to what I was saying last week, where this team has got character a little bit. Last year this team folded in games against Arkansas, close games late, where things weren't going your way. Your quarterback wasn't 100%. There's a recipe there for you to fold, to say, well, we'll just save it for another day. They really bow up, and when it matters, make the key stop. KJ, like I said, he had a good game. He threw the ball 39 times, 25 of 39 for 250, 2 touchdowns, 2 brutal interceptions when they were driving late. and he threw it right to a linebacker. It was like it was designed to be thrown to the Ole Miss linebacker. It's just a play that can't be made, but it's a sign of what a quarterback back play looks like when they can't sit in the pocket comfortably without getting hit constantly. You start seeing stuff, you start taking more risk. You just can't sit back in the pocket. But Ole Miss weathered a storm. I don't have a lot to add for Ole Miss this week. It was a team win. It was a gutsy win against a team that seemingly has your number. Going into this game, in the last 10 years, Ole Miss has lost 6 of the games to Arkansas, and in most of those games, they've been favored. But you've lost 6 of 10 to Arkansas. They come to your place. You win 27-20. You win ugly. You win by, you really, multiple times in that game, it could have gotten squirrely, but you did enough to stay in control the whole game. And it was just a good team win. It's the kind of win you can build upon. Like, if you can say now that you've played a poor game and still won an SEC game, and an SEC game counts the same as any other SEC game. They're all hard to win, even against teams like Arkansas. Arkansas's lost 4 straight games now. They're going to lose 5, their 5th straight against Alabama this week. It was a good, gutsy team win. The atmosphere, like we talked about, was incredible. I haven't gotten tired of seeing the clips yet of the LED light shows and the drones. And, I mean, it looked like a party in the SIP, if I'm being honest. Ole Miss's brand, I've always hated the shtick. When I've talked about it on this podcast, I've always hated that we've never lost the party, because it was such an excuse it was like a way of coping with saying, well, we've never lost a party, but we did lose the game. You only say that after you suck at something that I care about. Well, we may have lost, we never lost a party. I hate it. But it really felt like a party, and it felt like a college atmosphere that is what college football is all about. And to get up for a game against Arkansas, where last week you had the big environment against LSU, and to duplicate it the next week against Arkansas, who was down, you beat good teams, beat teams that they're better than.
Right.
And they beat them. They won ugly. Down the stretch, Ole Miss is looking at a bye week this week, and then you go at Auburn, which is going to be tricky. Ole Miss historically doesn't win at Auburn very often. You've got another bye week with Vanderbilt coming to your house. And then the most crucial game on your schedule. If you are going to have these aspirations, if you want to go 10-2, if you want to go 11-1, obviously you got to. If you want to go 11-1, you got to win all out. But if you're going to go 10-2, you've got to beat you've got to beat Texas A&M at home at your place on November the 4th. It's a huge game. That's what you're looking at. That's game circled, but you cannot discount Auburn on the road. It's a 6 p.m. night game at Auburn at War Memorial. Not War Memorial. I'm getting War Eagle. What's the Auburn Stadium? At the Plains in Auburn. Jordan-Hare. Yeah, on the Plains in Auburn. You cannot overlook them. But for the next, everybody will be listening to this either late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning. You got a week and a half here to where you just really need to, for at least a week, just need to lay up and get healthy. That's priority number one. Thoughts and prayers, Caden Prieskorn, who has been absolutely great for Ole Miss in third downs. He is exactly what we've needed in the run game and on third downs that we were missing earlier in the year. His dad tragically passed away yesterday, and so he's away from the team for a little bit. For injuries, for everything else, team-related, the bye week could not come in a better spot. And I know a few years back, Ole Miss had their bye week like week 9, and by the time you got there, you were limping so bad that you were losing games because of it. This is a perfect time for a bye week, right in the middle of your SEC schedule, right after leading up to a big road game. So you've got a big road game at Auburn, and then you can prepare for Texas A&M during Vanderbilt. If you're being honest, I mean, I know Vanderbilt snuck up on Ole Miss in the past, but this ain't that Vanderbilt team. And so you can rest up, get scribble some notes during the Vanderbilt week on your Texas A&M matchup the next week when they come to Oxford. where everything will be on the line at that game.
Yeah, not a ton to add. You kind of nailed it, man. It was an ugly win. It was a gritty win, but a win is a win. At this point in the season, right before a bye week, like you said, you go into the bye week, you don't have this week should be very minimal contact practice. You just recover, spend a lot of time in the training room. You just get healthy, and then you start prepping, later this week for Auburn and get ready for that game. Ole Miss was gritty. They found a way to win. We talked about the atmosphere. We talked about the, Jackson Dart stepping up, making some big plays when they mattered. Ole Miss's defense stepped up, made plays when it mattered. And it was a good gritty win in what is a like you said earlier, that's a game that you have struggled with over the last 10 years to step up and find a way to win, because as bad as Arkansas is, that game was in the mud. And when you're in the mud with a bad football team, that's when you get beat. And, credit to Ole Miss for stepping up and winning a game that they very easily could have lost simply because it was in the mud with a bad football team. So,
right. And so good character win, good win to get up there to say that you can win ugly if you need to. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to win 55-49. You can win these games that are 27-20 where you're not playing your best.
Exactly. So we'll wrap up week 6, giving our college football playoff picks before we do our picks against the spread for next week, and then wrap up with some fantasy football talk. So my top 4, not a lot of change this week. One team is back, and one team makes their first appearance this year as they were finally impressive to me. Number 1 is Florida State until they get beat. They beat Virginia Tech like a drum this past weekend to stay number 1. Number 2 for me is Oregon. They got a big test coming up this week playing at Washington. But, again, until they get beat, they're the second best team I've seen this year because they score points by the bunches. Shout out to poor Puddles.
Yeah.
Number 3 is Michigan. Michigan struggled this week, man. They gave up double digits for the first time all year.
10.
They gave up 10 points. They won 52-10 over Minnesota, sparking PJ Fleck after the game to say, that's the best football team I've ever coached against. Michigan looks strong. They look good. That defense is nasty. J.J. McCarthy's playing good football. Michigan's number 3. And again, in weeks past, number 4 has been that team that has impressed me the most. Maybe not a team that's going to make the college football playoff. This week it's different. The Georgia Bulldogs are my number 4 team. They run up, over, through, around, all over Kentucky. We talked about it. They hadn't looked dominant and flexed their muscles, and they more than made up for it by hanging a 51 burger on Kentucky, beating them 51-13. Georgia Bulldogs are my number 4 team.
Yeah, we followed a lot of the same trends here. So number 4 for me is Oklahoma. I've talked about Jeff Lebby's offense on here. Dylan Gabriel's been really good. They have not been tested until this week, and they passed the test. Dylan Gabriel's clutch. They did just enough to win. Their defense has been opportunistic more than it's been great. Some of the great defenses are not necessarily, don't look at yards per game, but look at turnovers. Look at, when it matters. Kind of thing, and when it matters,
sacks, like big plays like that.
Yeah, they've been very opportunistic with turnovers. They've been really good. Oklahoma's number 4 for me. Number 3 is Georgia. That I was leaning the same way. They haven't been in mine either because they haven't played anybody, and when they have played somebody, it hasn't been very convincing. I picked Kentucky last week because I just thought that Georgia's just not ready for, to blow anybody out yet. They proved me wrong. Like you said, 51-13 against Kentucky was very impressive. It's not that a win against Kentucky is impressive in itself, but 51-13 is very impressive.
And it wasn't close from the start.
Yeah, it was 21-0 from the start, early.
Before they knew what hit them.
Carson Beck looks like he's kind of fallen into form a little bit. He's a young guy who needed some reps to get right, and it seems like he's getting right enough to lead this team that's stacked on defense, just like they are all the time.
And it doesn't hurt to throw it to Brock Bowers.
Yeah, Brock Bowers is the best pass catcher in football.
Yeah.
And so, Georgia finally cracks my top 4, my Mount Rushmore, because they finally beat somebody like a Pulp. Number 2 is Florida State for me. They've dropped 1, and it has nothing to do with Florida State. the recency bias, the win against LSU that we were so hot and heavy about in week 1, that's turned out to not be that great. I mean, it was a great win. It's still a good win, but it's not what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not enough to keep Michigan from being behind them. Michigan, like you said, won a close one. It was the first time this year they've gave up double-digit points, and they only gave up 10. 52-10. They're going to set a record this year for point differential. I can't do the math right now on point differential, but it's insane in a points per game differential.
Well, and it doesn't hurt that their schedule has been so. I mean, I gotta hear.
And it doesn't get any better.
No,
I mean, they've so far they've won East Carolina at home, UNLV at home, Bowling Green at home. Bowling Green, who beat Georgia Tech, who beat Miami. So, beat Bowling Green at home, beat Rutgers, a spunky Rutgers team.
Sure.
A crap Nebraska team on the road, and a Minnesota team on the road.
So they're going into the Minnesota game. The combined records of the teams they've beaten is 18-26. Just not good football.
I get that, but like I said, good teams win. Great teams beat the crap out of people, and that's what you want to see when you're playing crap teams. The schedule does not get any harder. They've got Indiana, Michigan State, who's a dumpster fire. Purdue's a dumpster fire. But then the back half of that schedule,
it gets tough.
At Penn State, at Maryland, and the game is at Michigan this year to end the season. They're going to be 9-0. We're going to see what the last 3 games end up being. But
they
won't
play their first ranked team until November 11th as their first ranked team.
That's what I'm saying. There's nothing that says that how they will compete against a top 5 team. However, against the teams that they've played, they've beaten them as bad as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll put that on Instagram. Tell us what you think. See what you see if we got it right or where you disagree. All right, our picks this week. We'll roll these kind of quick, and then we'll wrap up with some fantasy football. We've talked about this one already. Arkansas at Alabama. Alabama is a 20-point home favorite. I think if this was a 30-point line, I would take it. Alabama is going to just crush Arkansas. I think they'll get a special teams touchdown, a defensive touchdown, an offensive touchdown, and I think Alabama covers. They win by at least 20.
Yeah, I'm with you. The line is the line. I hate taking – if this was the other way around, if this game was at Fayetteville, I'd have taken Arkansas just because I don't like home dogs with that many points. But I'm with you. Give me Alabama and the points. Alabama and the points. Arkansas's lost 4 straight games. There's no way this isn't 5. There's no way they're going into Bryant-Denny Stadium with any sort of confidence at all.
No.
And a team that doesn't have confidence, doesn't have a little bit of swagger, don't stand a chance.
No, especially
the only way they don't cover is if this game ends up being like 24-7.
Yeah, and Saban takes the air out of the ball at the end of the game. But where Alabama has struggled on offense, they haven't struggled on defense. That defense is good, and they're going to give KJ Jefferson problems. Rocket Sanders is beat up. He ain't going nowhere. I just think this game reeks of 31-3 or 38-6. A couple field goals for Arkansas. I don't even know if they score a touchdown. All right, next up is a huge Pac-12 matchup. It's lost a little bit of luster after Washington lost last week, but Washington is a 3-point.
Washington didn't lose last week.
Washington State lost last week. Sorry. Washington State lost last week. Washington is a 3-point home favorite over the Oregon Ducks. Drew, what's your take here?
This is by far my favorite game of the week. I'm so glad this game is at 2:30 and not the Pac-12 after dark.
After dark, exactly.
Because I would have stayed up, but I would not have been as happy about it. Oregon and Washington is good. 2 Heisman Trophy contenders with Bo Nix and Michael Penix. I don't really know. Washington being a 3-point favorite at home tells me that if this was played at, say, the Rose Bowl, that it would have been a pick 'em.
Mm-hmm.
That it's totally based on home field advantage.
Location.
3 points. Yeah.
Oregon would be a 3-point home favorite.
I don't really know where to go here. It's really a toss-up, and I'll pick one just because I feel like the quarterbacks are a wash. I don't really know who's got a better defense going forward. ESPN has this matchup predictor at 55% Oregon on the road, with Washington being the home favorite. So give me Bo Nix. Bo Nix, because I've seen him for a long time. Both these guys feels like they've been playing the quarterback position in college football for 8 years.
For 8 years.
Bo Nix is just, to me, has been in a lot of bigger games, being at Auburn and then being at Oregon. The environment's not going to shake him any as the road team. I feel like Washington kind of has that same stigma, like a lot of those, Michigan State teams did, or those Pac-12 teams or Big Ten teams that make it to the playoffs just to get wiped out by Alabama. That's what I feel like this stereotype of Washington is, and I haven't seen them win this game yet, and so that's why I'm going to pick against them. Give me Oregon +3.
And that's who I picked, Oregon, for all the same reasons. I feel like Oregon has been in bigger games already this year. Their defense, again, Colorado's offense isn't like a juggernaut, but it's a good offense, and they absolutely crushed them. I think Oregon has shown to me the ability to step up to a big game because they played in one. Bo Nix, it's funny you mentioned Bo Nix being in college forever. He actually beat Justin Herbert when he was at Oregon, and Bo Nix was at Auburn, and Herbert's a 4-year pro now.
Right.
So Bo Nix has got seasoning. He's been there forever. I'm taking Oregon as well. Next up, A&M at UT, playing in Knoxville, Neyland Stadium, under the lights. Tennessee 3-point home favorite, and I think that this is the game that really starts unraveling all things Jimbo Fisher at A&M. I don't trust Joe Milton, but he's serviceable. Tennessee's defense is better. I think that if they can give Milton time, and Tennessee's O-line is good. It's not that Milton hadn't had time. He's just wildly inaccurate on middle to underneath throws. But I think they get enough big plays. Their defense is good enough to stop A&M. Again, you keep the ball out of Naismith's hand, and I think A&M is a very beatable team. A 3-point home favorite. This game might be 27-20. I think Tennessee pulls out the home win. Give me Tennessee in the points.
Yeah, I don't really have a feeling on this one as well. I feel like Texas A&M as a squad is better.
Probably.
Again, what did you say the DraftKings line is?
It's 3 points.
So another game that played on a neutral field would be a pick'em.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like A&M's test so far. A&M's played Bama. They've played Auburn. They've played Miami on the road. Like they've played games that feel like put them in a better spot. What I feel like is working against them here is you're going on the road playing a team that's just coming off of a bye. Tennessee's got the extra week of rest, and they
play better at home. They play better at home. Their loss this year is at Florida on the road.
Right, and at Florida is all you had to say. It don't really. I mean, they're not going to win many games in the Swamp.
No,
just as a rule.
Never have.
But I want to pick Texas A&M. I'm rooting for Texas A&M because of what it means going forward for Ole Miss. Like I said earlier, giving Ole Miss the best win possible. However, I do think Tennessee and 3 points is the pick here, and that's where I'll go. I hate the fact that we're lining up so much
so far,
but it's just I don't like. Both of these teams are flawed offensively. Brad Johnson's kid, he is Max. Like, he's fine. He's not going to screw up. Joe Milton is liable to screw up, but he's also liable to look like the best quarterback in football. Like, the whole range of outcomes for Joe Milton is so wide that's why I'm leaning Tennessee with an extra week to prepare.
Yeah.
For Joe
I feel like you know what you're going to get from Max Johnson. You don't know what you're going to get from Joe Milton, and that gray area is why I think Tennessee could win this game. I think they could win it big, and I think they could win by a touchdown.
Yeah, Max Johnson's best game is probably like Joe Milton's 40%,
Yeah.
But Joe Milton's got that extra 60%, but he can also go out to -20.
I mean, that's it. Like, I think like Max Johnson, if Max Johnson can go to Tennessee and even go like 15 for 21, throw for like 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, they're going to win that football game.
With a special teams touchdown.
Exactly.
Like that,
But there's a very real likelihood that Joe Milton could go out there and go like 41 for 50 and throw for, 306 touchdowns. Like it could.
Let the record show, I will be rooting for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
For the reasons that I've stated, but also seeing sad Tennessee fans in Neyland Stadium is like a drug.
It just makes my heart so happy.
But I do think I am going to pick Tennessee -3.
Yeah. All right. Next up, in the game of who do you trust? Neither team, but who do you trust? Florida plays at South Carolina, where South Carolina is a 2.5-point home favorite.
Listen, I don't even know why we're picking this game. I'm not watching this one at all. South Carolina's a 2.5-point favorite.
Yeah, 2.5-point home favorite.
Another game on a neutral site, probably be a pick 'em. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
What a dud of a game.
Yeah.
I'd rather see South Carolina win. So
I want South Carolina. They're the home team. They run the ball well, and we both know that Florida cannot stop the run.
Yeah,
Spencer Rattler's, I know. Spencer Rattler's another one of those quarterbacks where he could have a bad game, and he can go out there and throw for 300. And so, of the teams that I trust, none. I trust Florida less than I trust South Carolina.
I'm not going to ever trust Graham Mertz.
No.
So give me Spencer Rattler and his high variability, but give me Spencer Rattler.
Yep. This one is one we might differ on. Maybe not. Auburn plays at LSU, where LSU is an 11.5-point home favorite.
I mean, LSU, if they've got any pride at all, they're going to put them away. That's what they're going to try to get on track here. 11.5 points is a lot.
What time is that
game?
What time is that game?
Let me see.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, we'll see who gets there first. I don't know about LSU right now, and I certainly don't know about
it's 7
Auburn.
o'clock.
7 o'clock
Eastern,
in Death Valley.
6 o'clock Central.
Give me LSU. I think they're going to have to get on track at some point if they're as good as they are. They've had their pride tested back-to-back weeks, and going 1-1 against Ole Miss and Missouri. LSU fans don't ever think they should lose to either of those teams, but they've looked ugly in both of them. And so it's kind of the thing that I was thinking about Georgia last week. At some point, they're going to have to get off the snide a little bit.
Yep.
And so give me LSU. 11.5 is a lot of points to give up, but I just don't. I don't know.
It's a night game at home, and they usually win those games convincingly. But Hugh Freeze has those years where he just has one screwy win that he's not supposed to, whether that's beating Alabama or beating these teams they're not supposed to. And I think, like you said, I think he's going to really be gunning for Ole Miss and probably State to an extent. But this feels like one of those kooky games that they could win, but I don't think they do. I think they cover. I think it's a close game. I think LSU is not – they're good. They're still a good football team. Their defense is bad. It just so happens that Auburn's offense is terrible. And LSU's offense can get bogged down. And then all of a sudden they'll hit Malik Neighbors for a 50-yard touchdown. I think LSU wins, but 11.5 is a lot of points. I'm going to take Auburn on the points. I don't think they'll beat LSU, but I think they'll hang with them enough to keep it close.
If Auburn had a decent quarterback, I would lean the other way because their defense is good. But.
Their defense is good, but Alford and that other kid just cannot play.
No.
But I think Auburn does enough to keep it close. A 10-point ball game they cover, a 7-point ball game they cover, and I can see that happening. So give me Auburn on the points.
Okay.
Last two, we've got Southern Cal, the real USC. Shout out to my Gamecock fans, at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is a 2.5-point home favorite. I don't know that I trust Notre Dame. They have screwed me twice this year. I picked them to beat Ohio State, and they didn't do that. I picked them to lose to Duke, and they couldn't do that for me. So I'm taking USC out of spite, which means
I'm taking Notre Dame then.
Exactly. You should take Notre Dame because my kiss of death is on Caleb Williams and Southern Cal. It's a rivalry game. It's at South Bend. Did you see the video that came out today of how USC was preparing for this game?
Oh, they got some chemical sprayers.
Yeah, just hosing these kids down, catching punts and catching balls because it's going to be a gross rainy night in South Bend, which will slow down USC's offense, but not enough. I think USC is a touchdown better team. Give me USC over Notre Dame.
Yeah, I was going to pick USC too, but your history of Notre Dame makes me want to pick
I'm just
Notre Dame. Pick against you.
A smart play.
Yeah. I don't think Caleb Williams. I mean, I don't think USC can stop anybody. They haven't shown that they can.
Mm-hmm.
They have a defense that has a pulse at all. Notre Dame, like I've said with LSU, they've had their pride tested the last 3 weeks. So they're going to have to get off the mat at some point if they're going to. You said they're favorites.
Notre Dame is a 2.5 point favorite.
Give me Southern Cal. I don't want to bet against
no.
Caleb Williams as a dog against a Notre Dame team that just lost to Louisville.
A bad Notre Dame team whose defense is not that great. Although that video I sent you on Instagram, did you watch it?
Which one? You sent me a lot of videos.
I do. It was this, and you don't respond, but it was this one of the Notre Dame media team did like a highlight of the last. Dude, watch it. It's like a 4-part watch. It was really well done because they got the coaches like headsets playing through as they were playing through it. It was incredible. Great. I'm a sucker for a hype video. I hate Notre Dame, but that was awesome.
And
the last one is Missouri at Kentucky. We got a lot of close spreads this week. Missouri at Kentucky. Kentucky is a 2.5 point home favorite at Kroger Field. That's what I'm taking. Missouri. I have my picks already lined up. I took Missouri at Kentucky. I don't trust them. I almost said it. Devin O'Leary is a complete fraud. Can't play quarterback. Bad. Leary. Yeah. I did it. Devin Leary.
He's not Irish.
Yeah. Devin Leary is a bad quarterback. Welcome to the 2 Buck Sports Podcast, where we butcher everybody's name.
Welcome.
Yeah. He's a fraud of a quarterback. Ray Davis is good, but Missouri defends the run well. I'm taking Missouri as well.
Yeah.
All right, Drew, hit us with those Drewskis from the League of Avengers last week. That's some good games, man.
I had some good games. I always like it when games are decided on Monday night, but we did not have any of that this week at all. Everything was decided going into Monday night, but that goes to figure when the Monday night game is the Raiders versus the Packers. There's just not going to be any players of value really on either side of that. Let's see. Had some big scores again. Hunter Shaw has consistently put up. He's got the 2 high scoring games of the season. And Kurt put 173 up on Zach. But he did not beat Zach as bad as Hunter beat Aaron. Gotham City Knights put up a 90-point win or 86-point win over Aaron Ivey. I was telling Zach last night, it's like it's not that I feel like Hunter has the best roster. He's just made the right moves, it seems like, every week. He texts me on Sunday morning or on Thursday afternoon. It was like, should I start DJ Moore or Raheem Mostert? And I was kind of like, I was leaning Mostert. And he was like, well, I may be down Amon-Ra St. Brown, so I think I'm going to have to I'm going to regret not starting DJ Moore if Amon-Ra St. Brown ends up being out on Sunday. So he puts DJ Moore in, and he goes for 49. The week before, he was struggling with whether to put Mostert in, and he decided to put Mostert in. He went for 45. Like, he's just made the right calls every time, it seems like. And Hunter's a really good fantasy player, but that comes with luck as well. And so Hunter beating him by 94 points is just, or 96 points is just unreal. That's your Buddy Stevens Award winner. Most points scored in a loss, the Al Gore Award, is not really anything to speak of this week. The rest of the games were kind of duds. Most points scored in a loss is 113 points by our boy Lump. Got beat 135-113. Just not really a week that you're going to really remember if you're not Hunter Shaw or Kirk this week in fantasy.
Hey, listen.
Football.
I beat Andrew Farrell by 63. I mean, I came close to the Buddy Stevens Award with some big showings from Travis Etienne on Sunday morning from London. George Kittle with his Dallas Cowboys T-shirt on got me 3 touchdowns in the Sunday night game as they just beat the brakes off the Cowboys.
That was fun to watch.
And a little humble brag moment. I went into Sunday at -5. because I picked up the Commanders defense thinking the Bears offense has
Right.
been trash. And so why not play the defense? Like, I stream
And-
defenses. Why not play the defense playing the Bears? And all of a sudden the Bears thinks they're the friggin' Chiefs and put up 40 on the Commanders. And I was going into Sunday at -5 and still come back and won by 63.
Yeah. Waiting for the day you get humbled a little bit.
It's coming. So I got Aaron Ivey this weekend. Not super worried about that. Next weekend I play Hunter Shaw. That's the weekend that I'm nervous about.
Big one.
That's the one I'm nervous about. I've got a couple guys on bye that week, but yeah, fantasy football is going well so far for the Mad Titans, but in 2 weeks we'll find out what we're all about.
Yeah, I got back on the winning ways. I'm not going to lie. I pulled a trade off with our boy Neezy a few weeks back, 1-for-1. I traded him Hunter Henry, and he traded me Breece Hall. He was hungry for a tight end. I was hungry for a running back with Saquon Barkley on IR. I played Neezy this week, and Breece Hall went for around 30, and Hunter Henry went for 0. So that did feel really good.
I saw that.
And so a good week back on the winning track. The game against Rusty last week was just a minor setback for a major comeback,
Yeah. But hey, the Mad Titans still
I
5-0, baby. Let's go.
Justin Jefferson going to the R does not make me feel good.
No, it doesn't. But looking at the final standing projections that ESPN does, we were talking about this all fair. I was picked as the 9th team out of 12 in our league. I was not one of the higher teams, and I wasn't super excited about my roster, but it's all come together. I just hope we don't peak too soon. A lot of football left.
Yeah. So 2 right now is Gotham
City Hunter.
Yeah. And then number 3 would be
Kuman
Torch. That's Mutters, and I'm 4. So which seems fair with
how it's
with
so far.
Justin Jefferson going down. So anyways, good podcast, Rusty.
Yeah, man, enjoyed this one as always, sir. Tell them where they can find us and where they can keep up with us.
Yeah, you can find us at the number 2 Buck Sports Pod on all of your podcast platforms and on Instagram. If you want to interact with us, that's the place to do it. We love our interactions on Instagram. All the polls that we do on there throughout the week really provides a good base level for us going into each podcast week and to have some interaction and something to talk about that we know that you guys have participated in. That's what we want this podcast to be, is a lot of crowd participation and audience participation. So we appreciate everybody who has participated and invite anybody who hasn't to start. We really enjoy it. But yeah, that's where you can find us. You can find us again on your podcast streams next week on Thursday morning. Be looking for us.
Yeah, man. And again, tell your friends, any Memphis Grizzly, Major League Baseball fans. We're going to talk about that some next week as our 2 favorite teams are on a bye week. We'll talk college football, obviously. I'm sure there'll be some good games this weekend we can talk about. But share with a friend that you haven't before. Get them to listen. Get them to interact. Like Drew said, we love when y'all do. So we appreciate those that participate week in and week out. And as he said, we'll see y'all back here next week. Appreciate it, Drew.